Doug Ward from Tech Britain. Today we're here with Jeremiah from Every1Speaks. Thank you for your time, Jeremiah.
You're welcome.
You'd just like to let our viewers know a little bit about yourself and the company.
Okay, so I'm Jeremiah Alexander, run a company called Every1Speaks. It is a collaborative learning platform, primarily for schools, but we're looking at its applications in other industries. My background is actually in games programming, so I started off running a game-based learning studio called Ideonic. We've done a number of projects, some big clients, Channel 4, the Tape. But we also spent a lot of time in schools. And being in schools, you start to see the problems with how learning works. And so one of the projects we worked on was, could we use gaming ideas from gaming, I suppose, gamification, and web technologies to give students a way to better share their ideas on how school could be improved. And so we worked with students, they came to our office and we got them involved in our design processes and the way that we like to creatively solve problems. And we developed a website for them which they could use in school to share ideas. I suppose from there we saw that actually this ability to quickly share ideas with other people it's really crucial to effective learning. And so we took that idea and we kind of kept exploring it, and maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we decided to do something with it, and we developed a product called Every1Speaks. And initially the focus was just on being a really efficient opinion and idea capturing platform. We borrowed ideas from social media, so for instance, anytime anyone shares an idea on Every1Speaks, it's in a very concise form, so 100 characters. They share an idea, and then other people can comment on those ideas. Again, 100 characters, micro posts. But what we did, one of the unique approaches that we took, is we tried to take some cutting-edge creative thinking techniques. So you might be familiar with the work of guys like Edward de Bono on lateral thinking and thinking hats and applying different perspectives. So in Every1Speaks, whenever anyone contributes an idea, they have to frame it in a perspective and say, all right, I'm highlighting a strength of an idea, I'm highlighting a weakness of an idea, something that would make the idea even better.
That's cool.
My personal opinions. And so it's that iterative process which is continually making the ideas better, and they've developed collaboratively as a group.
Sure, that sounds great. We were speaking off camera about, obviously you're at a stage now where you're working with a lot of schools. If you just get the statistics right,
So we've got, I think, about 30 schools currently paying for the first version of the product that we got out. We got a round of investment last August and began developing a second version of the product, as you do as a developer. We got the first version out we bootstrapped it and we got a minimal amount of funding. Spent loads of evenings and weekends getting the product together. Got it into schools, got them using it, and then the feedback just starts to roll in. And you just start to see the weaknesses, or not even the weaknesses, but the ways in which you could make this even better and take it to the next level. So we started building the second version of the product, and we've just unveiled the beta of version 2, and we've got about 60 schools across the world signed up using it.
I think that's really cool. I think it would be great to share how you've actually gone around the problem of customers wanting to just have that perfect product, and you having to, obviously push the product out there and test it and things like that. What would you like to share with our viewers how you got around that?
It's a real challenge, because I suppose one of the differences that we've got in comparison to many products, we're asking people to pay for our product from the start.
Yeah.
It's not a Facebook or a Twitter, come along and use it in a real shape, make money through adverts, right?
Yeah.
It's paid some money for this product, it's going to help you learn. So I suppose one of the challenges is we still want to keep that flexibility of having a product which we can quickly update. So it's a software as a service product. Schools pay for a subscription and can access it from anywhere. And we continue to make updates. Even now, we've kind of given them the beta version of the product. What we said, the deal that we've got at the moment is they sign up now and they get effectively 16 months for the price of 12. September we go out of beta in September, so it'll be bug free. But until then, they can keep playing with it effectively for free. But it's that tough balance, like you said. It's between, I'm paying for this product, I want it to be perfect, but it's trying to get the product out really early so that we can get the feedback, because that helps us to make it better. And I think it's essential to communicate that with your customers. And I think that that's something that we tried to make sure, that the message that we tried to make sure we get across is, we deliver the product to you in this way because it means that we can respond to your demands and to your needs. You know, if they want new features, they don't have to wait a year for a new iteration of the product. We can just update those really quickly. So it's double-sided, isn't it? You know, they get the benefit of us being responsive, but potentially they have to deal with a product which they get 6 months earlier than they might if they were waiting for an annual update of a product.
It's a great solution to that problem, and you're attracting people who are prepared to find the bugs, so you get the feedback you need to iterate. I think it's a fantastic thing for the viewers to consider. Obviously we're based in Newcastle today, and I'd like to speak about Newcastle's tech community. What do you see as the strengths of Newcastle's tech community?
See, this is the part where I have to be really patriotic and say it's the best tech community in the world.
Yeah,
ever.
absolutely.
So it's the best tech community in the world ever. I think, you know, I often kind of get asked a similar question, and I'm trying to think what the right answer is. And recently, in December, I was over in Brazil, and I got to go and see. In the northeast of Brazil, there's a place called Porto Digital, and they have a sort of tech hub called Cesar Park, and it's phenomenal. You know, it's an amazing place, and they're attracting attention internationally, and huge contracts from across the world. And I was talking to the executives behind the initiative and trying to say, what's the trick? How did you get this to work? And he summed it up to me. It was really simple. It was because we're not in a prime location, we have to be at least twice as good as everyone else to get noticed. And I think that that's the reality sometimes. So we're not based in Silicon Valley, we're not based in London, we're based up in Newcastle. We can't be twice as good. We have to be 4 times as good to get the attention. So I think anyone who's from Newcastle, from the northeast, who's getting attention, is probably worth paying attention because they've had to work many times harder in order to get that attention.
It's not happened overnight. Like, say, some companies in Silicon Valley, 2-3 months, and they've suddenly been funded. That just doesn't happen here.
No, absolutely not. And it's just that reality as well, in terms of how much harder you have to work to get it. So, I mean, we launched an education technology product. We worked quite hard in terms of having to build a first version of the product, pilot in a large number of schools initially, and get feedback in order to get a round of investment, because education technology is seen as quite risky. Companies in Silicon Valley, fresh idea, many millions of investment straight away. And I don't know if it's better or worse, but I think that sometimes, depending on where you are, you have to work a lot harder to get the same thing.
So kind of Newcastle's strength is, it's almost embracing the fact that it isn't Silicon Valley, so it's making you bootstrap, push the product even further. I mean, these have got to be great strengths for Newcastle. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's a real sense of grit. You just have to be exceptional in order to get noticed. So something which might come easy to you elsewhere. So, I mean, if you're sort of based in Shoreditch, then you might get a nice stream of journalists coming up to review whatever you're doing. But here you have to really try really hard to drum up attention for what you're doing. So I think that forces you to work a lot harder and think a lot smarter than you might have to if everything was on your doorstep.
I guess we should say that when we reached out to people in Newcastle, very, very sharing, we thought it's got to be a good thing. You know, we were saying off camera, look at the States, and they're very much about sharing their ideas and not being so protective about that stealth mode that we were talking about. Would you say that's what Newcastle's got, that kind of philosophy?
I think increasingly, recently, we've become really strong as a community in terms of sharing our ideas. I think initially everyone thought, okay, so you've got this great idea, you have to lock it up really tight and be in stealth mode and not tell anyone about it. But then I think that we've all had a while of, we've all been through this point of having these ideas and trying to get them off the ground and realizing actually it's a lot harder to get an idea off the ground than it is to have an idea. And so being overprotective of something. I think you start to loosen up, and you realise actually, even if someone hears my idea, the amount of hard work that's gone into trying to get that idea off the ground, that's the hard part, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you're just a bit more open about just sharing your ideas, and I think that really brings the community together, because you start to realise everyone else is having similar experiences, or some people have come across some problems that you're having, and you start to get a real good sense of community.
And speaking about the government, what's your thoughts? Do you think they have a role to play in the tech community?
I think I think it's optional, isn't it? In the sense, I think some governments make a real effort to support emerging economies. So I think as a good example from the gaming sector is in Canada, the huge tax incentives which games companies get, which means loads of games companies relocate from the UK to Canada, or from elsewhere in the world to go and be based in Canada. And I think that at every point in a business's growth, there comes you have to be realistic about where you are and where you need to be to succeed. And so I think if an environment isn't supportive of a business, the business eventually leaves that environment and goes somewhere that is. And that's something that we've seen with the games industry in the UK, where there was better options to be based in Canada. So eventually you can only resist that for so long until suddenly all of your competitors are based in Canada, and they've got reduced, their costs are reduced, so they're able to invest more. And so at a point it becomes a disadvantage, a strong disadvantage for you as a business to be based somewhere. So in answer to your question, I think the government can choose not to support businesses, and I think businesses will still develop, but they might decide that at a certain point in their development it's time to move on and perhaps relocate.
I guess a bit of feedback we've had while travelling is when big tech companies are going into an area, they're almost like sucking up the talent. And we're speaking about developers and how to attract developers, because there seems to be a shortage pretty much wherever you go of really great developers. Do you think there should perhaps be some kind of incentives for young British startups? I think that may be a route to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the issues that we found from recruiting is, I think often, especially quite experienced developers, are often a bit intimidated by the risk associated with working in a startup. I think there's a sense of job security that you get working for a large multinational. Whether it's true security or not, or it's just a perception of security, I think that startups are seen as quite risky. Perhaps there needs to be some sort of incentive or scheme which helps to alleviate that risk. I'm not entirely sure what that would look like, but I think it's decreasing anyway. I mean, if you look at the amount of demand for developers, I think it's very unlikely if you're a good developer that you're ever going to be without work.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So even if you got work at a startup and then 6 months down the line that startup goes bust, there's loads of startups starting up now ready to pick up good developers. So I don't know. I think maybe there's just a security issue, or the sense of security.
But like you said, it's more perceived.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily factual that they're taking as big a risk as they think by getting involved with something they think is really cool.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe that's something that the government could look at, is are there incentives for encouraging developers to work with startups? I mean, potentially something to do around tax breaks.
One thing I like to do just to end the interview is ask for the big vision for Everyone Speaks. That's always what we like to hear.
So Everyone Speaks is it's an interesting product. In our whole vision with Everyone Speaks is around collaborative learning. So our big vision, one of the big features which we've really pushed in the second version of Everyone Speaks, is allowing schools to not just share ideas within their school, but to share them with other schools. and that's schools in their local community, that's also schools in the rest of the UK, and that's schools internationally as well. And for us, that's the really exciting big vision, is Every1Speaks becomes the standard platform for collaborating with schools across the world. So you're a school in the UK, you want to do a project on sustainability, you collaborate with a school in Brazil based next to the Amazon.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's the big vision, that's what we're trying to do.
I'd like to thank you very much for your time, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.